Welcome to Rawsome Parents, the podcast where parenting gets real, raw, and awesome. Parenting is messy, magical, and transformational. So whether you're navigating new parenthood, single parenting, co-parenting, or rediscovering yourself after the kids have moved out, you are not alone. Here we share raw truths, heartfelt stories, and playful conversations with parents and experts, because suffering is optional, and together we can lead with love, heal what holds us back, and create lives full of fun and integrity for ourselves and our kids. So grab a coffee, hit subscribe, and join us on this wild ride. Let's get raw and awesome. And welcome back to another episode of the Rawsome Parents Podcast with me, Shaun Tucker, and I'm here with Ashleigh Conwell, who is a triplet mum, widow, CEO, founder, speaker, and podcaster, passionate about helping women own their stories and embrace resilience. 4 years ago, she lost her husband, and amidst the grief, she chose to rise, not just for herself, but for her kids as well. This journey led to the creation of Falcon, which is a community that's born from resilience and empowerment. Like Falcon soaring higher in storms, she helps women rise above challenges, rediscovering their power and potential. Falcon offers actionable tools and support, reminding women their story isn't over. So join us and join Ashleigh in creating a life filled with purpose and joy. Ash, welcome to the show.
So much for having me.
It's a pleasure. And wow, the last 4 years must have been excruciatingly difficult for you, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a journey, and it's probably when you're reading that back to me around, I guess, who I am now and also what I'm doing. It's certainly a moment of reflection of going, wow, I've come a long way in 4 years, but certainly a balance of pain and, of course, creating joy again.
Yeah, and we've spoken off show before a little bit about some of your journey, and standing up, even though you don't feel like it, I think is really the theme of obviously resilience as well. But what was the decision for you that was like, no, this is something that I need to do now?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a moment or one single thing that happened. I truly believe it was the journey of not only grief, but parenting. And I guess, coming out of that that immediate shock of grief and that immediate feeling quite paralyzed, I suppose, not only in the pain of the grief, but also all of the emotions that come with that, and not knowing who I was as an individual, as a wife, now widow, as a mother. Like I had all of this change thrust upon me that was not by choice. And then, being now a solo parent to triplets who were born prematurely, like a lot had happened. So I would say that there wasn't a single moment where I decided I'm going to start a business. It was a journey of healing, of grieving, and it was not a linear journey at all, because, there was also the sleep deprivation thrown in there as well from the parenting side of it, and getting up in the middle of the night to 3 babies. So it was a continual journey, and I'd sort of take 3 steps forward and 5 steps back continuously. So I felt like it got to a point of I was making progress along that journey, and also the moment of feeling this desire that I don't want to be sad all the time. My mental health absolutely took a real hit during this point in my life, as you can imagine. But also I had this moment of saying to myself, I don't want our kids to only know sad mummy. They don't deserve that, and I don't deserve that. I am here. I am blessed to have this life and to share this with them. So it's also a way to honor Matt and honor our marriage and, our parenting to the kids as well, to to create that as well. So they're probably the combination of things that happened
Yeah.
in that journey to get me to this point.
Yeah. And just so our listeners are caught up on, I guess, the start of the journey, what was the thing that started all this? I mean, you don't just become a widowed mum to, triplets over like out of nowhere, right? So just so our listeners and viewers understand, what has been that journey for you?
Yeah, sure. So I think many of us have a story from the year 2020. It was
Yeah.
a pretty iconic year. So my journey was sadly in January 2020, my father-in-law passed away. And I adored him. So that was quite a tough time for us. In March, I got stood down from my job. I in the travel industry, obviously affected by COVID. So I stood down from a job at a company that I just loved. And of course, there was a lot of uncertainty around that time and no one knew what was happening. So that was, of course, another tough time. In June, we found out that we were pregnant. And we were just so excited because this was something that we had really dreamed of.
Yeah.
And a few weeks later, we found out that we were not welcoming one, not two, but three babies.
Goodness.
And
Wow.
that was a real shock.
Mm.
We were surprised, to say the least, but we just felt so much excitement because we were so hopeful for one, and now we were going to be welcoming three. So that was a really exciting time, of course, mixed with nerves and going, okay, how are we going to manage this?
Yeah.
And then in August, we celebrated our wedding anniversary. And I didn't know that that would be our last together. So a week later, Matt went out for his morning run and he didn't come home. He was involved in an accident, and that's when my life changed. I was 17 weeks pregnant, and that's in that moment I then became a widow and a solo parent to three unborn babies.
Wow.
And we were always warned that it was a high-risk pregnancy, so I really carried this fear of welcoming or losing our babies at any point. And so obviously that moment was, I guess I still don't have the words. A lot of pain, and then knowing that the journey that I was yet to go on with, becoming a first-time mum, and a first-time mum who is now a widow to triplets. So really tough.
Wow. Well, I have no words to say what kind of experience that would bring to anyone, but I just admire you so much. Like, there's so much heart and so much soul you have, and that, sharing that with whoever's listening, whoever's watching right now, they can feel your pain, because that's part of the human condition is when someone's really raw with themselves, really vulnerable, people can feel that. And I think it's so inspiring and so painful at the same time, right? This is the other side to it, because you made a choice. You're making a choice every single moment to continue moving forward. I mean, how many times would that just get people stuck in their way?
And I think, there were moments when I had to just be at home and really have that, those breakdowns and really just, on the floor crying. There's lots of those moments. And it doesn't go. There's sayings that, time heals, and it doesn't. The pain is there, and it is every day. But I couldn't live anymore with that much sadness for myself, for my own health, and like I said, more for the kids, because we've got a joyful life to live. It's a lot of, work to find that joy again, and I've continued to do that work. to get to that point and carry it on. It doesn't mean like, life is not an Instagram highlight reel.
Yeah.
There are still lots of moments that the kids and I have, and that our family has, in that grief, and that will always be there. And so is the joy. So I hold it, very delicately, and it's parallel, and it was quite confusing initially to me because it's this deep pain, like I said, depression. I had a lot of anxiety, like a lot going on.
Yeah.
And I also had 3 beautiful babies. So this real contrast between the most excruciating pain I've ever experienced in my life with the most joy I've ever experienced. And like I said, it's not that you don't just choose to, I'm just going to be happy today. That's a journey. And that's a continual work in progress.
Yeah.
And I think I've now felt it is possible, and it's small movements, but it's also accepting that it's not a linear process. So, yep, someday might be a good day and I take that win. The next day might be pretty rough, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's such a, you could describe it as beautiful and ugly at the same time. Paradox of what it is to kind of live with so much. And there's so many other people that I'm sure are not the same experience, of course, but parallel experiences where they're just suffering so deeply, but then they've learned to turn it into something or see the other side to it. Because we do live in this dualistic world, which is good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
There's good, there's evil, and it's the choices we make. And you're right, it's so hard not to get wound up and caught up in it. And it takes a lot of work to just work yourself to a point where you can choose how you respond on that day or in that moment.
Absolutely. And I think we sort of have two ways in which that plays out. So I think there are absolutely moments when you're holding both, not always evenly.
Yeah.
And then there are times when, of course, one emotion, whether it be the sadness or the joy, is really held in that higher state. And I think it's if you're feeling the joy, go with that. What a beautiful feeling to feel that again. Equally, those moments of whether it be sadness or whatever that emotion is, to be okay with that. And it took me a bit of time to really honor that's what my body's needing from me right now, and I need to allow that. And you know what? If that means I'm lying on the floor crying for 20 minutes, that's what it's going to be. And, it's obviously sort of having some strategies available to get you out of that state, or support networks, whatever that looks like. But I think it's also honoring whichever state you're in.
Yeah.
And acknowledging that as well. So it's probably, holding both with equal amounts of respect.
Yeah, it takes a lot of awareness to sort of allow yourself to go through it, but also then recognize when it's time to move out of it.
Absolutely. And that's, comes from help from others as well. And sometimes, you do have those moments where you are struggling and you need help from people around you, whether that be family, friends, or even, formal supports like a psychologist. But, and I've done that hard work. So, I'm feeling really optimistic and hopeful because there is such a beautiful life. And I see that particularly in the kids, they're so innocent and playful, and what a blessing to be here to experience that with them. And, to remember that life is truly beautiful.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder, like hearing your story, and this story is going to be shared on so many different platforms. I mean, not just this podcast, but what I'm saying is your speaking career and standing up, showing people what's kind of possible through the devastation, through the pain, through the suffering, but also the hope and the optimism, like you're saying, with your children. You now have these 3 beautiful young children, which you're showing up every single day for, and you're not being recognized or being remembered as the the sad mummy, like that itself is it's really, really powerful. And at the same time, it must take so much courage every single day for you to wake up and even just recognize that within yourself.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. It, like I say, it's a continual journey, and um, yeah, to show up. There's a lot of times when I don't see that in myself, and I've had to do a little bit of work around that to acknowledge what I am doing, what I have done, and the setups and the structure that I am providing now for our future as a little family. So that in itself takes work.
Yeah.
Aside from the grief or parenting, and I think the other thing is that this is my story, and listeners, I hope, are not in a similar situation to myself, but may have their other versions of grief or trauma or whatever that may be in their life, whatever that past is of their life. So we've all experienced that, but yeah, it's showing the courage and getting to a point of acknowledging that within yourself is a tough place to get to.
Yeah, totally agree. I'd love for a moment to go back to when you first had your babies, and you said they were born prematurely as well. Going back to that version of yourself, having gone through what you've gone through, having recognized when you needed help, used the tools, brought yourself to where you are right now. What's some of maybe the phrases or the words, some of the wisdom you could tell yourself in that version that you could say now, just whatever it is? What would you tell yourself when you first became a mum to these 3 beautiful little babies?
I would probably say you are an amazing mother. You are giving them everything, all of your energy and all of your love. And that trumps everything. Love, presence, that you're doing that despite everything that you are navigating physically, mentally, emotionally. You are present and you are giving every ounce of energy and love that you've got. And that is, amazing. And I look back now, and, I look back with a lot of emotion because, I was fragile in so many ways, and I still showed up. And it's only now that I can look back with pride and love for myself.
It says about the level of work and deep work you've done, the internal work you've done on yourself. Because so often, I know that there's so many mums that I've spoken to, and it's not just mums, it's dads as well. Anyone really. Giving is so easy, right? It's hardly even recognizable when you're giving. But it's when you're recognizing and being able to receive what you give out, that's when you know that you've done a lot of the hard work internally on yourself. Actually just accepting and acknowledging not only where you've come from, but like what you've been able to do, especially for 3 little vulnerable kids, right? I mean, their life is 100% dependent on you. So it's almost so natural to do it. But at the same time, it's with what we're going through or what you're going through, what you've been through, it's like it could be easy just to say goodbye and not return. It'd be the easy way out, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and the easy way out now would be just to stay at home and cry.
Yeah.
And there are moments that I would love to do that. But I then miss out too. And yeah, there was part of me, I mean, I really, in hindsight, and I couldn't really see it at the time, but I really pushed myself too hard. I had a lot of high expectation and pressure on myself. And it was purely because I felt responsible to be the parent, whereas normally that is often, and every family is different, of course, but in our situation, it was to be a split role of parenting and, 2 parents. And now that's on me. So instead of having, a 50-50 split,
Mm-hmm.
I was 100%. And so that meant that I changed every nappy. I woke up every single time I heard a baby cry. I did all the feeds, like everything. And I had, a lot of help and family, friends saying, like, I can change a nappy. Like, I know you can, but like, I'm the parent. And for me, that was part of my healing and trauma.
Mm.
I couldn't relinquish that. And it wasn't necessarily relinquish of control, but it was such a deep um, guilt, hurt, pain
Mm.
that Matt wasn't here to do it. So it's like, well, if he's not able to change a nappy, like I will. And so it was very much that was all it was. It wasn't about, another person being capable or another person being able to take the load. It was that as a parent, that
Mm.
was what I wanted to do. And so that was where that pain. So I look back now and I can see that that pressure was just way too much. But I also wouldn't change it because that is what I needed for me in my healing. And I probably wouldn't be here either in this state if I hadn't done that. So I think a lot of people, I definitely felt a lot of pressure from others to accept that help, and I actually wasn't able to. So I think it's also knowing what my limits were.
Yeah.
So, I think that's an element as well, is that pressure on myself. So I can look back now and say, look, it was probably too much, but I acknowledge. And also, like, I stayed really true to that, and I stayed true to like what I needed for me. So I was protective of those boundaries for myself and my health.
Mm.
So even though it's just a dirty nappy, which people would happily hand off, for me, that was like quite an important thing for me to do. Which sounds a little bit crazy that someone would choose that, but there are so many layers. And it was part of me and part of my healing journey.
Yeah. And I think from the conversations that I've had with a lot of other mums as well, the mum guilt is not easily kind of like given away either. So if you feel like your duty as a mum is to like do all the mum duties and all the parent duties and not be able to ask, it's not even about asking for help. It's almost like there's this deep innate expectation that if I can't do this, then I'm not a good mum.
Yeah.
Right. And that is so, it almost annoys me to hear it, but it's just something that I've recognized in my wife, right? Something that I've recognized in my own mom. And it seems like there's, I don't know if it comes from a societal expectation of this is how mums should be, or if it's just like a deeper biological reasoning. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably a combination of all of that, right? And I think if we even look back and, sort of hunter-gatherer days, it's the men would go out and hunt and gather, and the women would stay back in the village and care for the kids. So maybe it is part of evolution or something, I don't know. But yeah, it's so deeply entrenched. And, there's a lot of quotes that you see out as well. The expectation of, in this context, let's just talk about mothers, but it's, work as if you don't have a family.
Yeah.
Parent as if you don't work. And that expectation is huge. And I talk a lot about it, particularly with friends of mine who are also mothers. And we talk a lot about the load and the physical, mental, and emotional load. It's, for me, when I say physical, I'm doing all the lifting in and out the car for the car seat, the twisting into the cot, and, lifting the kids. And, I don't have the biggest muscles. So, like, I've really, bulked up in the last few years just lifting these kids who are now 14 kilos, but often they love to at least have 2 carried at a time. So it's like, I'm carrying like nearly 30 kilos. I have never done that in my life. So my PT is like pretty proud of me.
That's
And he said, oh,
incredible. Yeah.
I go have triplets. So there's that physical toll on the body, not to mention, just recovery from childbirth anyway, right? But
Yeah.
there is that. And I don't share that load with anyone. But then there's the mental load of remembering when swimming lessons are on, and then that means packing togs and towels and, etc. And then, oh, that's right, at daycare next week there's a show and tell day, so I've got to remember to pack that. And, all of the logistics that we carry as parents.
Mm-hmm.
Often, and it's obviously a big generalization, but often that is either the mother thinking about that, or at the very least as well, it's a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talk about that a lot. Like I said, with friends of mine, that there's a lot of layers and there's a lot of mental load as well.
A lot of preparation it takes to go anywhere.
Oh yeah, is a lot of prep.
I can't imagine what it would like to be with triplets, but yeah, even with one, in the last year has been when we plan to go back to my parents who live in the countryside of Victoria. It's like, yep, we need to prep this, and this, and have that packed so we can go and make sure that everything's all good. And, my wife's an engineer, so she's always prepping 20 steps ahead anyway. But I have noticed that, seems to be the mothers that seem to be really great at preparing these kind of things. I'm sure there's a number of dads out there as well.
I think we also think about it from the perspective of a contingency plan, because we know something's going to go wrong. So it's not only preparing for the present situation and the basic needs, but it's like, oh, but if this happens, we're going to need these extra,
worst case scenarios.
Yeah. But we also know, well, hang on, if worst case scenario happens, then the domino effect is this, and then we just keep going down the line. And, then we walk out, whether it's just visiting parents in countryside, it's like, we're basically taking everything from the house except the kitchen sink. But at least we're prepared.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's a wonderful characteristic, but it's also, wow, do we really all need like so much stuff?
I think and that to that point though, that just adds to that mental load.
It does.
Because
yeah.
On one hand, you could say, oh, you don't need all that stuff. But, and I've had it in my own situation. I remember the very first holiday that we went on, and, that carried a lot of emotion for me. It was a big step. And we just went to the beach for a few nights, and the packing list was gigantic. And my sister said to me, she said, oh, like, I don't think you need all of that. She said, we're going to the beach and they have all this stuff. I went, I know, but I need it for me. And so it was like the mental load. I said, I just need my stuff. And, it was like one person could look at this and look, oh my gosh, this girl's completely crazy. However, if I didn't take it, like the effect could have been quite drastic.
Yeah.
So I sort of was like, yeah, I know it seems crazy, but I'm going to do it anyway. Because for my health and my sanity, it was actually worth it. And, we needed to take 2 cars, and, there was a lot of stuff and about 18 loads to the car, to the unit, to get everything out of the car. But I then felt content. So, look, I don't think there's a bad thing, contingency planning. And of course I didn't need 3/4 of the stuff, but I had it. And that was worth its weight in gold. So
yeah, my wife always says, if I don't bring it, well, I will need it. If I do bring it, I won't need it.
Yeah. So I actually have a classic story about that. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago in the daycare centre, they said, oh, we just need to let you know there's been some head lice in the centre. It's not in your particular room, but just so you're aware. So, of course, I go straight to Woolworths and buy head lice treatment kit and spent $30 or something. And I said, I'm going to buy it and then I'll never need it. And that's exactly what's happened. And now I'm $30 on something I'm not even using, and it'll probably expire. But totally, I'm like, now I don't need it. So that's still worth it. Maybe like it was a good investment, because now we haven't had to deal with head lice times 3.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a good choice, but
yeah, it's a funny thing. It's like, is it martial law? Is that what no, it's not martial law. I can't remember what it's called. There's definitely a law that's kind of tied to this.
Maslow? Oh no.
No, I can't remember what it's called.
What is it? Murphy's Law.
Murphy's Law, that's the one. Not martial law. That's too militarized. Yeah.
Yeah, Murphy's Law will always get you.
Yeah, totally agree. So, Ashleigh, we're actually coming up to the end of the podcast. There's one more question that I'd love to ask, and that through the journey of raising triplets, is there any particular point in the journey thus far that you wish you could just push fast forward over? Was there any moments where I was like, I just want to skip this?
No, I wouldn't. And even like looking back to the really hard times,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't, because each of those moments have created our family. And, there's been a lot of heartache, and there will continue to be. But I never want to miss out or rush it, because I have learnt through the harshest of ways how precious life is, how short it can be. And so, if anything, I probably almost want to do it in slow-mo, because, particularly as a triplet mum, and there are other families who have, finished having children, by choice or otherwise. And for me, I get to do this once. We have all of the firsts, and it's also the last. I don't get to do day one of kindy again. I don't get to do, I'm pretty happy that nappies are done. I'm pretty happy that toilet training's done. But, like all of those milestones, like first steps, or like I don't get to repeat that. And there are moments that I look back, particularly in that first year, where I say, oh my gosh, I was so, like, obviously I was so upset. There was so much going on, and I missed being completely present. I was still there. I still remember all of it, but, I was carrying a lot at the time.
Yeah.
So I really try and be truly grateful, because I get to see this, I get to experience this. And like I said, I am experiencing the first and the last at the same time. So there's nothing that I want to fast forward through.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe the tantrums could hustle those a little bit, but I mean that's such an important learning for the kids as well, right? And it's not easy, but it does really make us as people, individuals, and a collective family unit. So and it's an opportunity for us to talk and to support each other through that. So I really am a big believer of celebrating wins and milestones, and truly holding each other tightly through the tough times as well. And so all of those moments are also an opportunity for me to share that with the children.
Yeah, that's amazing, honestly. Like, woman has gone through so much and still is able to say that I would do it the same way. I wouldn't fast forward through anything. I find that incredibly inspiring. So, Ashleigh, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story and your wisdom with all of us. Lastly, for people to connect with you, to find out what you're up to, if they want to get you as a speaker, what's the best way to connect with you and the best way to do that?
Absolutely. So the best way is through Instagram. So my handle is ashleigh.conwell. And then, of course, if you're looking for more resources and things through my business, Yellow Falcon, the handle for that is yellow.falcon.
Cool. And I'll make sure that I link all of the above, all that Ashleigh mentioned as well, in the show notes, so that you can easily connect with and see what she's up to as well. So thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Ashleigh, for being here. And if you want her on again, please let us know and we'll make sure that it happens. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys. See you next time. Bye for now. Thanks for tuning in to Rawsome Parents, where we keep it raw, real, and awesome. If you loved this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more parents just like you. And hey, remember, parenting is a wild ride, but you're never in it alone. If you need more support or just want to connect, find me on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook and Instagram at the Shaun Tucker. Until next time, stay raw, stay awesome, and keep leading with love. See you soon.